SpeedWeek that when his Formula One days are over, he would like to live in the United States and continue his racing career.
I might race anything, Indy or NASCAR, just for fun. It's just going to be completely different for me, and it's going to be a different way of life, just to try a different lifestyle in America. And I believe this will happen, but I don't know when. It's a completely open situation. It may take quite a few years before that.
In fact, he keeps in very close contact with his mentor, fellow Brazilian Emerson Fittipaldi.
Well, we talk more about life and sure about driving, and the last few months he went by my home in Florida. We jogged together, and he's a very nice guy, incredible, fantastic driver, very talented driver. And we exchange information. The type of life I have here is very interesting about Indianapolis. And he's hoping as much as he can possible to watch this year in Indianapolis, to come over here, and Alan Prost too. Well, I explained to him that's much easier here. He don't have Balestra knocking his head. Everything's much more smooth here, and much less political, and much more sport, the way it should be. Enjoy driving a racing car.
Over the past week or so, Emo was just one of several testing their high-speed oval machines for the first time at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Jim Crawford took to the track to shake down his brand new Lola chassis, especially designed around a smaller and trimmer version of the Buick engine. Insiders say this chassis tested better in the wind tunnel than the Lola's made for other engines. Crawford's best laps were unofficially in the high 218s. Short track open wheel veteran Stan Fox was getting some seat time in a year-old Cosworth-powered Ron Himmelgarn Jonathan Byrd entry. Come May, Fox will be driving another one of the new Lola Buicks. It's an opportunity that Stan wants to make the most of.
I'm going to put all my emphasis on the month of May. That's the biggest race of the year, and that's the place where we should be emphasizing everything, all our strengths. So I have to give up a few TV races and one of the dirt car races, but after that we'll be back in full swing with the open wheel cars.
Scott Brayton, who has probably logged more laps at Indy over the past few years than anyone else, was active in the Dick Simon racing entry, a 91 Lola with Chevrolet power. And Danny Sullivan, encouraged by his Alphas performance in Australia, could only get in a half day before fickle March weather forced an early postponement of his testing efforts. Top speed so far, Emerson Fittipaldi in the new Penske Chevy at 223 miles an hour. 2 weeks ago, John Andretti won that Australian race, the first kart event held outside North America. But did you know his uncle Mario won the first USAC Champ Car race on a road course here in the United States at Indianapolis Raceway Park in July of 1965? That's the subject of this week's Dick Wallen Racing Classic. Here's Donald Davidson.
Mario Andretti and A.J. Foyt are on the front row ahead of a field which is a mixed bag, complete with front-engine roadsters and even dirt cars. Mario leads the opening laps as A.J. uses every inch of the road course in pursuit. By 1/4 distance, however, it's A.J. leading as Mario takes a slight off-course excursion but recovers. Ronnie Duman also finds his hands full, but there's plenty of runoff room for making a recovery, and he's able to get back in the contest. The battle up front continues, and here comes Mario with a move that works. Johnny Rutherford's dirt car gets away from him, but he doesn't hit anything. The 3/4 mark, and A.J. is leading again, with Mario close behind. Bobby Unser is third. The last lap, and Foyt is slowing down. Mario roars past to take the win. Bobby Unser is second, and here comes Foyt salvaging fourth. He ran out of fuel. The first championship road course race is over, and for Mario, it's his first champ win ever. He'll win 50 more during the next 1/4 of a century, second only to Foyt. For SpeedWeek, this is Donald Davidson.
What do Winston Cup drivers do on their week off? Benny Parsons will tell us when we return. Were in action last weekend, including the modifieds at Richmond. Mike Stefanik started outside the front row and dominated the first half of the race. The defending champion Rick Fuller suffered this early setback and could never mount a challenge. Stefanik was pressured in the late going by Doug Heverin and George Kent, but he went on to win and called it the biggest victory of his career. Pensacola, Florida was assigned at the inaugural race of the NASCAR Winston All-Pro Series. The last of 15 cautions involving Junior Neidecken and Ron Young with 11 laps to go set up a great race to the finish. The winning pass occurred when number 4 Bobby Gill nudged past Jody Ridley with 5 laps remaining. A few hundred miles down the road, the Busch Grand National Series was in action. Pat Jones escaped serious injury when he overcorrected a slide in the 4th turn and sent his car nearly head-on into the wall. Kenny Wallace, Rusty's younger brother, started 13th but passed Jimmy Hensley on the 73rd lap and went on to win his first ever Busch race, increasing his lead in the point standings. ESPN's first Winston Cup telecast is a week from Sunday at the Trans-South 500 in Darlington. In pre-race testing for that event, Ken Schrader, who won the most recent race at Atlanta, was fastest. The King Sports Quaker State Buick team will have a new crew chief for the Darlington race. Wayne Bumgarner has been elevated from within the team to replace Larry McReynolds, who has joined Davey Allison at Robert Yates Racing. The Winston Cup division didn't race last weekend, but our Benny Parsons found some of the drivers participating in extracurricular activity.
Bob, you wonder what a race car driver does during the week when he's not at the racetrack? One thing he does is try to raise money for charities. Dale Earnhardt was from Kannapolis, North Carolina. The people at the Kannapolis school said, we need to raise some money to try to buy some bleachers for a gymnasium. They went to Earnhardt, he got some of his buddies, and they had a pretty good fundraiser at the A.L. Brown High School in Kannapolis. First of all, there was the man, Dale Earnhardt. And Kenny Schrader stopped by. Michael Waltrip stopped by. Busch Grand National winner Kenny Wallace stopped by to take time out to sign autographs. Kenny left here, went to the victory party down in Charlotte, but he was here signing autographs.
This is just like in the movies, a small town with a lot of people and a lot of Dale Earnhardt fans here. You know, this is a great time.
Did you ever think that your first victory would be as big a deal as it really is?
Well, not really. I just kind of knew that it mattered where I won. I think I was fortunate to win on a race that was covered live on TV and radio, and win especially on a weekend off all by ourselves. So the focus was on a Busch race. You know, it was just great.
All the local drivers from the Concord Speedway would stop by here. They're all signing autographs. Now, once they get through signing autographs, they're going to be playing basketball. The NASCAR team versus the local personalities of Kannapolis. Bob, you guys in Indy have the Final Four, but we got the NASCAR All-Stars. For SpeedWeek, this is Benny Parsons in Kannapolis, North Carolina.
With shooting like this, it's no wonder that the local guys beat the NASCAR team by 1 single point. And I think it's pretty safe to bet that Ernie Irvan and company won't be a threat to any of the teams playing in this weekend's NCAA tournament. The SCCA previewed its Liquid Tide Trans Am Series Wednesday in Detroit. The series begins May 5th at Sears Point and could still end at St. Petersburg, despite reports that the race would not be held.
I talked to St. Petersburg about an half hour before this event started. There is a new ownership team that has been working behind the scenes to secure the rights and sponsors of and assets of St. Petersburg. That looks, I don't want to say it looks good. I'll say it looks better than 50-50 as far as I'm concerned.
The Trans Am Tour is the longest continually running road racing series in North America. Mazda Motorsports has made it official. This will be its last year of IMSA GTO racing. Mazda will move its headquarters to Charlotte, North Carolina, and will concentrate on construction of its 1992 GTP car. Coming up, Sammy Swindell makes a triumphant return to sprint car racing. Able to get back into the race and wound up 6th. Mason, Michigan's Jim Hettinger made up in handling what he lacked in horsepower with a Volkswagen engine, passed Stryker and won the race, his 2nd this year and 2nd in a row here at Lanier. In the Northeast, it's still a little too cold to run outdoors, so the TQ Midgets continue running indoors at the Niagara Falls Convention Center. In the B main, traffic got a little too heavy in the 2nd turn. That's Bud Lee Jr. flipping, with John Zazella also becoming involved. Both were checked at a local hospital, but neither driver was seriously injured. Later in the evening, Danny McKnight won the main event. Well, the Academy Awards were held earlier this week, and with that in mind, when we return, we'll recognize some award-winning performances from the world of motorsports. Stay tuned.
Horsepower Dodge Stealth RT Twin Turbo.
Now, get up to $1,500 cash back on select Dodge cars. It's traditionally one of the most emotional and exciting collegiate events of the year. Top teams skate off with one goal in mind, the NCAA Hockey Championship. Saturday night at 8 Eastern, live on ESPN.
Ground transportation arranged through General Rent-A-Car, where free unlimited mileage and quality Chrysler cars are just two of the reasons people on the move are racing to General.
Last year at this time, right after the Academy Awards, we handed out some awards of our own, honoring top achievements in the world of motorsports the past year. Well, they're back. Here is SpeedWeek's second annual Axle Awards. Our award for Quote of the Year regarding Operation Desert Storm from Jaguar Managing Director Tony Dow.
I hope we kick their ass as hard as possible, as long as possible. And I'm fed up of seeing these little tin pot people try to kick America around. You know, I really am. And I want to see us kick this guy so hard and get rid of him and get back to where we should be.
The Rodney Dangerfield I Don't Get No Respect Award to Gary Lee and David Hobbs for their verbal exchange at Sebring.
David Hobbs just said he had not won this race. However, he did win a Formula 5000 race here back in 1969. David, I'm going to give your age away, but I was still in high school. We've talked a lot about tires here.
Well, you always were retarded.
The award for Best Achievement in Sound during a race telecast goes to Ayrton Senna for his emotional outburst after winning last weekend in Brazil. The outstanding achievement in costume design to this fan at last summer's Winston Cup race at Watkins Glen. And finally, our award for the best reproduction of a memorable moment in sports at last summer's benefit softball game for Terrell Gwynn when Chad Little collided with John Force at home plate, sparking memories of the Pete Rose-Ray Fosse incident during the 1970 All-Star Game. The NHRA defeated NASCAR in that game, but in my opinion, it was one of the most emotional and memorable evenings during the past year. And that will do it for another edition of Speed Week. Next week we'll be on at this same time, 7:30 Eastern on Saturday night, just before the return of Saturday Night Thunder. And we leave you with action from the Mickey Thompson Off-Road Grand Prix at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California, where the Grand National Truck Competition was won by Rod Millen. Have a safe holiday weekend. So long, everyone.
Speed Week has been brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. And by Busch Beer.